All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn. We're gonna give it a few minutes to see if anyone will be joining. Apologies for the late start with some technical issues, but we are good to go now. So I'll give it a couple minutes, see if anyone else is joining, um, and then we can go ahead and get started talking about some things. All right. We might be having a little bit of a slow day today, at least a slow start. We don't have a lot of people here, but still happy to go over anything that we'd like to discuss or look at issues or whatever it may be. I am Jeremy. I will be running today's Lunch and Learn. I'll also be running tomorrow's. Just kind of our quick housekeeping things while we wait to see if anyone else will join or if we have any questions in the chat or anything. Do keep in mind, we always have our decision support YouTube channel up here in the top right. Um, so if you would like to take a look at any of the content that we have, we always post our Lunch and Learns on the YouTube channel. So you can always take a look at any questions if you missed one, or if you'd like to just keep track of a question that was asked and you want to find out more, you can always check out our Lunch and Learns every day, and as well as additional other content. Um, some weekly videos of new things and some different things to keep track of or take a look at, new steps. We're working on some new a step-by-step series to kind of deep dive into certain steps and take a look at some elements and common mistakes and errors that can be experienced with a number of different steps in decisions. So we can look at those as well. So those are all on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out. We also have our solutions marketplace, a great place where we can take a look at a number of different things if we want to look at some kind of pre-made options to choose from with everything. So, here's just a couple examples, like a couple of our featured items here. We've got a number of accelerators that you could always take a look at and learn more from, download and check out the features and things for them. If you wanted to do anything there, we've got a number of partner solutions and some community items here as well. So a lot of great things here. Definitely something worth checking out, even just to kind of explore a little bit. Don't forget to post any questions in the chat. I know we got kind of a small group here today, and I know sometimes people just kind of join to view and experience other questions, but I'm happy to go over and take a look at anything that we like. All right. Well, if we have nothing, I'll kind of just poke around a couple little things here. Some things may have already kind of discussed in previous versions, but just some things that I know I've been asked in the past and some things that are maybe overlooked. So we can kind of do that a little bit. Maybe we'll get more questions out of that, or it'll be a relatively small, short day. Um, the one thing that a lot of people are kind of already aware of and easily comes across in training is the option to set up integrations with flows and things like that. So you'll have this option up here to configure an integration if you'd like to set up something like, like an API service, or if you want to set up a webhook or anything like that, which some of them have their limitations, but we can do that in reports, rules, and flows, I believe, the three places you can set up at least API services. And I know user interfaces and webhooks have a little bit more limitations on them. But a lot of people are kind of familiar with this, and they utilize this in quite a few different ways. And then from here, you can view your details and get the information that you need in order to actually integrate with this. So if you want an external system or something like that to run your flows from something on the outside or anything like that, you can set that up in this way, or you can send it outward. And whenever you set it up, whether you have name sessions or certain options to logging in or anything like that, whatever that may be, you get all of your details and your information on the side with the URL and everything. What do you use if you're trying to use a get call or a post, anything like that? This flow doesn't have a lot configured, so I don't have any inputs or outputs expected or set up. But if I did, you'd see all those details written out here. So there's a lot of good things that you can do here with view integration details and stuff like that. I think a lot of people are fairly familiar that you can kind of do that and set that up especially within flows, because you kind of see that up there. And we do that a lot in some of our earlier training. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize or kind of miss out on, and we do this in one of our training projects, but actually folders also have the ability to look at integration details. So here I'm just looking at my flows folder, but I could do this on a folder that I have a dashboard for, anything like that. And here it's just simply a URL that I can set up. But if you're familiar with where these items at the top of the URL come from, and how to manipulate and change things, as well as some of the settings that we actually have available here, you can adjust to do things like this as well. So we can actually set certain Chrome settings if we want to change how this will look, and it'll change the URL. So here I made top bar folder tree collapsed, and it just added equals top bar folder tree collapsed. And so if I change these URL settings and I go to this URL, it'll actually change kind of how decisions looks. And so especially if I'm using any, dashboards and things, and I want to limit what it looks like to make it look nicer for people, I can adjust what exactly this happens. Chrome equals off is a pretty popular one because it eliminates a lot of the decisions view. So we have like the folder tree and everything on the side, and this decisions part up here at the top. If I have Chrome equals off set up, it'll open it up with basically just that center view of everything. No folder tree on the left, no bar across the top. All that stuff is gone. It will just show me simply what's right here, which when you have a dashboard is very nice because now it limits what you see, and only someone with a dashboard will only see that dashboard, and they won't see all of the extra items and things like that if you're looking. And then you can, adjust a number of other things as well. If you want just the top bar to appear. So now I don't have the folder tree on the side, but I do get the top bar. I can change it to have no top bar. Folder tree is available, but it's collapsed. So now if I do that, top bar is gone, but I still have the ability to look at the folder tree. It just starts in the collapsed state. And then, I can expand it and everything to do what I want. But, you can kind of just change. It's a lot of ways to change, how exactly you want to, adjust what people are looking at, and see how they kind of view it. And a lot of great ways that you can do that. So always keep that in mind. You can do this to your dashboards. You can do this to general folders. If you just want a different user experience, here we can make the top bar smaller. But it just gives users a different experience when they're looking at it. Whether you want that for designer users to just be able to, start with the folder tree collapsed so that it's a little bit easier to look at, or whatever that may be, it's a great place to do that. There are also settings, if I remember right. I can't remember if something, it might be on the group level, maybe it's in the account level. You can force default URL parameters. I think it is on both the account and the group level as well. So in addition to that, right, you can force default URL parameters onto a user. So saying like Chrome equals off, for example. And so I can force any users within this particular group, or if I want to on an account, I think I can do it on accounts as well. I believe it's near the bottom. If it is, maybe it's only on groups. I think it might only be on groups, but still, if I have a certain group that I don't want to, but I want to only be able to view with Chrome equals off, for example, like maybe my guest users that are using this dashboard, or certain people that are using a specific dashboard, right? I can set up default URL parameters to have Chrome equals off. And now if I go back to where I was looking at before, my integration details, and I have this set up, the Chrome equals off, and they open up their URL so that they can only see it without the other items here. Some people might have concern that, hey, what if they just delete Chrome equals off and then, go to that website and now they delete this, right? But if I force a particular group to be limited on those settings, so then that group can only access Chrome equals off, then deleting it won't actually do anything. So it's a little interesting to and a couple like interesting things to take a look at. Something that I think a lot of people overlook. We do have it in one training project, but those that don't go through all the training, or maybe they are only in the stages of the early training projects, may not quite realize that you have the ability to really do that. Yeah. So with that in mind, um, I am going to, we have a couple questions now, some things that we're taking a look at. So let's jump over to those. It's a question for anonymous, so I don't know who exactly that is, but I will read your questions for now first. Could you go over dashboard creations? I've been tasked with adding KPIs in the form of a ban line chart. It would need to show how many tickets are older than 7 days, and the line chart would show ticket creation over time. All right. Create something here. All right. So let's open up a page. And whoever it was that asked those questions, two questions that I just read about this line chart and stuff, if you'd like to raise your hand or something so that I know who you are, I can unmute you if you want to add details.
I think it's Alexander. He's raising his hand.
Yep, I just
Hey,
Oh, okay, so
unmuted him.
apologies.
it was me. Um, yeah, I don't know what details you'd like, but I'd be happy to provide some.
Yeah, I'll just create a quick test example, and if things come up while we're building some things or whatever,
Cool.
we can. So obviously when you're creating a dashboard, there's a couple different ways that you can add charts and things, right? Like you can see I can add a pie chart. Obviously I know you don't want a pie chart, but we have a number of charts available that you can just add directly from here.
Does the system have gauges?
Yeah.
Oh, looks like it does. I think I just saw it.
Oh, this is what you're looking for?
I
Yeah.
just think gauges are kind of cool. People like them.
Yep. Yeah, there's quite a few different things. I believe.
And then I have to add a ban as well.
Let's call that. I know we have a line chart specifically. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with if is a ban like a type that's a little bit different than just a regular line chart.
Oh no, it's a ban is just a so it stands for and it stands for big ass number is what it stands for.
Oh,
It's just
got
a
it.
big number.
Okay,
Or some people say big aggregate number. Depends on who you're talking to.
got it. Okay. Yeah,
But it's
so
just
any
a
chart
big
that we
number
have,
that sits at the top normally.
got it. Okay. Yeah, so I mean any chart and stuff that we have, they're going to be uh like built on from some kind of report, right? So whether it's a pie chart, line chart, whatever, typically you're going to be populating the data with that from a report. And I can use those details or whatever. I can get it from a flow as well if I'm like creating the data in the flow. I just know the most like popular way of, populating some kind of chart is with a report of some kind. I don't think I have reports in here. No. But if I just use, maybe just create a quick report just to throw some data on here. And then I'll just throw some fields out here as well. Sure, I'll just do that way. So as soon as I have some data on the report, whatever's there, then I have my line chart here, or just whatever chart that it is that I want to use. And that'll appear and it'll get populated with data based on that. I can choose like the labels and everything, specify where that data is coming from and stuff like that. And obviously, depending on that data, will kind of change some of these things. I don't remember if it does it this way. I need to add one further. There we go. That's what I was getting. So you build a chart. When you're building it, you add your reports. And anytime you have any kind of groupings on your report, you create series, which is right what you're going to be setting to populate your data and where everything is coming from. So you can create these series by just grouping a number of items on your report. And whatever way you want to group them, if you want to group them by, the emails, so you have separate groupings of the emails or, anything like that. We got like first names. If I group them by first names, I'll have a bunch of, like null first names and stuff in here because I have a lot of things that don't have first names. But, you can see if I have a bunch of groupings here, on my line chart, then I'll have a number of series that I can base it off of. Oh, did I not save? No, I saved it. Might just be based on the items that I've chosen here. Might be limited, and I don't have any integers in this particular example. But basically that's pretty much it when it comes to like creating charts, right? I get the series based on the grouping that I have added. There's other ways too that you can add things. One of them being is under results, yes, subtotals. So I can also add subtotals to a report. So just kind of based on the groupings, the sortings, the data that I have in my report, I can add subtitles to something as well. So if I choose, any field within my report, I can have like a subtitle based on that thing. um, with like if I grabbed first name, for example, I can display like I can have my subtotals display like the counts of the first names. If I had any integers, in my data source that I'm coming from, I could, sum them up, I can average them. There's a number of different things that I can do with the information there. But when I create a subtotal, it will create and it'll actually track those totals for me when I'm looking at the data. So here you can see I've got counts, right? And how many first names do I have in this section? How many first names do I have in this section? How many first names do I have in this section? And it'll count them all for me. And so then I also have those available if you have any counts. See, now that I have some extra stuff, I can add a series, and I can have my series be based on subtotals. So you can really kind of expand your charts and things to display information based on, a lot of different ways, and you have a lot of configurability on what it shows. So, just kind of like how even in just like Excel or something like that, where you need to set up the series to be able to be used, Decisions allows you to do that as well. And then again, that comes from groupings and adding subtotals. So then I can make this, this line chart and everything that I need to, grab and gather any pieces of information or whatever to display all that I want to display on something, um, and show me different values. I think I might have an example here. So here, I've got a bunch of different charts that I'm displaying, to kind of detail. I don't think it'll show because I don't have anything in here at the moment. This preview doesn't show anything. But if I open up like this, right? So, here it's focused on like the amount that it's looking at. This is like a loan offer thing, right? So we got the various loan amounts that we have and the months that they're occurring on, but that's the details that I have displaying here with a couple different series to show it. So then it'll populate with the data that I want it to populate with, in this particular case. So I still can create that. I build it out on the dashboard, set up the series and everything so I can create a number of charts and stuff. And, obviously with the numbers, it might be a little bit of, playing around with getting those numbers to be exactly what I'm looking for so that I can display that stuff, and get this so that I can look at, okay, what the count of the months that I know how many are in each month, as well as actually displaying the loan amounts so that I can track those as best as possible. And so, yeah, so that's what I can do. And when I have where I have some kind of configuration, in setting up charts and things, and you can, like, these two are simple ones where I just grab it. They're sorted based on states and then a term of the loan and everything. So they're really simple. So it's just a sort that's doing it. But this is a good example of one where I have a subtotal to get the average loan amount, in addition to it being sorted on the months. You can see the months are grouped, so then this data can actually track those values and kind of display that thing. And you can make it more complex as well. Add more subtotals, add more items and things like that. So there's a lot of different configurability with it. Kind of takes a little bit of toying around with and playing around to kind of get to that point, but definitely doable. The other thing that you can do is a second way to create charts and things in different ways is you have the ability under views on a report. So if you have just your regular report, there's your data view, but you can also add other views. And as long as you have anything grouped, so you have to have something grouped first, but if you have something grouped, which in this case, my months are grouped. So as long as I have that grouped, you'll actually see the ability to add charts here as well, right? And so I can add a chart view of my report to display here. And so, I can add area charts, bar charts, columns, dots, lines, pies, whatever. All of these you should be able to find in the, page designer as well. But I can actually create them and set them up here. So if I remove this current folder filter, so it'll just show everything. You'll see there's all my data. But if I go here, this is just one I was testing with a line chart. For example, I still have a lot of the same settings that I had in the on the report, the page side of things, right? I can add series to this so that I can get my, counts of my months and everything like that if I want to track those and the average loan amount and everything like that. And I can still configure all those things. So I can actually configure it in two places, kind of depending on where you want to look. And then when you place a report viewer onto a page, you can have that report viewer display this view instead of the data view. So you can actually display your charts. beyond that, it's just a number of, messing with, where do you want to do? Do you want people to be able to actually see the data that's related to these things by clicking the show data button? Setting up like tooltips if when you're hovering over, right? Like I see the name and the value, right? So this is the month and this is the average value. Do I want someone to only see the value when they hover over it? Stuff like that. A lot of it's the visual of it and everything. But a majority of it's just going to come from setting up those series and getting the groupings and under results, setting up any subtotals that you want to have this displaying all the information on those categories and things, to display everything exactly as you want it. So there's a lot of good ways to kind of display charts and things in pages and stuff and decisions. One other thing I'll go over real quick that a lot of people will do is set up tiles to display things, because tiles is a great way. It creates this tile page part, and then if I don't have one, which I don't, it creates a flow called the tile source flow. And in creating this, it's just a little flow to run that will end with a create tile data step, which is where I can send data to display on that tile. By default, it's got 5 lines that I can send data into. So if, I can set up constants, I can pull from the flow, whatever I want this flow to build out for me. I can do, more advanced stuff to, add things if I want to build an array of stuff for, if you already kind of had planned in your system where everything's coming from, you have more advanced options as well. You can allow this tile to do different things if you want it to act as a URL to run things. If you want it to be like a button that if you click on, it'll run a certain flow, stuff like that. So you can kind of set them. Or if you have no actions, maybe it's just a visual to display your data, to display a number, to display a sum, whatever that is. You can display that too. And then obviously, styling changes and stuff. But then from here, you can do whatever it is that you want to get that information. Whether it's, fetching entities from something that you've created in your database. If you want to, you can run a report. Maybe you've got a report that's in your process that you want to then take values from that report and display on a tile to display information. That report can come from an Excel file, or you can just show or like output as an Excel file, or you can display all the data rows in the report. But that will just be simply grabbing a report that you've created, and then this run report step will output all the data from that report. So then you can kind of grab what you want and then say, let's just say for this, I want to grab the data from the report that I ran. Field 1 is the list of all my emails from that report that I was showing earlier. Field 2, I think, was my created on date. So I can grab that and just say, oh, let me grab for some whatever reason, I just want to grab the very first item in this list.
I think Wade has a question in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Yep. All right, let me finish this thought and then we'll take a look at that next. But yeah, so then you can grab like the value, right? There's a text, and then this will display the data that I ran from that on my simple file. So there's a few different ways that you can kind of grab data from reports or display data, on your pages and stuff to kind of show, hey, there's the things. There's my tile displaying an email or a number or whatever that may be. Hopefully that kind of helps give you some guidance and stuff for you, Alexander.
I'm sorry, could you say again?
I was just saying, hopefully that gives you at least a little bit of something to kind of play around with and give you an idea for what you can take a closer look at to.
No, that's definitely very helpful. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Wade asks, how can we add a created date automatically on new entity records? So I'm gonna give you a sec to talk if you want to add anything. Are you just talking about like if I created a new like of data structure, some kind of entity that I'm creating?
I mean, it's for a bunch of different data types, I guess. Like right now I'm using I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah, you're unmuted. I can
Okay.
hear you.
I think right now I'm working with just some simple data structures and but you know, data or the created dates. It's not like I don't know. I guess another things I work with is just as soon as you create an object, start creating records, it's automatically added a created date and last modified date. So that's just built in, but it doesn't seem like it's built into these and you have to create it yourself. Is that correct? Or is there somehow to add I seen what you can add an audit trail, but I don't know if it necessarily adds a created date onto a records where you can go into, the fetch entities or create a report, then it automatically has a created date on.
Yeah, so some of it just depends on what you're doing to actually create the data, right? So for example, we have all these user-defined types down along the bottom, right? So when you create a data structure, it'll populate the user-defined types with that data structure that you've created. So like, for example, right now I do have a database structure, so I'll just use that as my example here, right? If I drag in a create database structure, whatever that database structure is, onto my page, this is what I can like the easy way that I can actually create this data structure. And if I build it, you'll see I've got like a number of elements here. Some of these things, get auto-populated by decisions. And so if I'm actually trying to like pull data from or create data, I can specify specifically what that is. Most of those things though should get created for me when I create something. If I can create a report to report on that data structure. That one. Sample data structure. Maybe. Sample data structure. User defined types, database structures. Okay, I guess it was this. I just can't read. Okay, maybe it's not necessarily auto created in all of them. At least not database structures. So it might just depend on some of the data structures. For
I mean, are you saying that's I mean, when I set that, when I create the record, I have to set the created date too? Is that what you're saying?
I know some of them do have that by default. Like that specific like property is just included by default on a number of
Jeremy,
Okay.
could you go to the document, the difference
Yeah,
between the
yeah.
data structures on the website? That'd be a good talking point for it.
Right, yeah.
Cause yeah, I'll just give you a little bit more context, Wade. Yeah, there are some data structures that are part of the entity framework. And what that means is they'll have those extra fields. So for example, the entity is part of the entity framework. So can you go show the screenshot of all the properties, Jeremy? Scroll that way a little bit down. Boom. So all those entity framework fields. So the created on date, as you can see there, is a part of that for things that are created from the entity forward. Now the question becomes, well, the database in that metric, it says that in the database structure, it is part of the entity framework, but it doesn't have created on date. And that's correct. It is part of the entity framework because it only has the ID and the description, right? So that's why it's technically part of the entity framework. But if you're utilizing a database structure, it won't have the created on date by default. You would actually have to create that property in the database structure. If you used an entity, however, then that would automatically come with it. Anything from the entity forward in those data structures will have that kind of entity framework defined type or defined field of created on date.
And there's no way to, like, let's say add a created date, and then within when you're creating the structure to have a default value in there. So you wouldn't have to, on every single flow, add the created date on.
So I'm detecting two different questions. So if you used an entity, then yes, it will automatically just add the value of the created on date based on the current date of the system at the time.
Yeah, this is for, because I already have all these records in here and all these things all built with a simple data structure that
Mhm.
does not have a created date. So kind of, I'd have to redo everything right now into, I guess, a regular entity instead of a simple data structure.
You could do that, but if you go back to that screenshot, Jeremy, with that entity, right? There's a lot of scroll down to the properties, right? There's a lot of other extra fields that I don't know who you'll use, right? The extension ID, ID type, archived, archived by. Those are only fields there because the data that you create inside of an entity live in the portal in the studio, right? Like you can search for it and find it. Database record data only lives in the database table. And so some customers like just having the lower amounts of the data table or data fields with the database structure. And so all that means is you can have a created on date. You just have to add that data field into the database structure manually. And then when you have that additional property, date time input mapping options have a current date time, and you can just set that to current date time whenever you create a database record, and then it will track it.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going with that, is like when I create one, but is there a way, but I'd have to, for every single flow where I would create one, I'd have to add that in there, right?
Correct, that property, yeah.
Right. Is there a way to do that from, like, we're at this screen right now? Is there a way to do that from here so you don't have to worry about doing that in every flow? It's just automatically going to add a default value here.
Go grab Jeremy, create just a date. Just create a date member right there.
Just
And then
date
just
time or just date?
date time. And then advanced. I just curious to see if you can set a default value here. Scroll down. I don't think you can. I just want to
Yeah.
double
I
check.
looked, I didn't find it, but
Yeah,
I might have missed it.
exactly. Yeah, I don't think you can automatic. So the answer easily via this editor, no. But you can run a flow that fetches all your records, and then like loops through them, and then says your created on date is X, right? And then you can pre-populate that. The only problem is now your data is all. I don't know how long you've been having your data, but then it's going to say like all your data was created on today, which may not have been the case unless you kind of know what that. Unless you have like I don't know a CSV file or something where you know when that data was created. And then
Right.
you can reference by the ID of that database record and say, okay, add this value into it. So you can do it. And it won't necessarily be manual. You would just have to create like a small, like a flow that just loops through the data and adds the date value property.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and then
okay.
it's still a little unfortunate, but like now that I've added that field to my database structure, if I build data, I have that date time. You'd
Yeah.
have to do it anywhere that you need to create data, but obviously you
Mi-
can choose
mine-
current date time for that. So at least for all future ones will have it for
Well,
sure.
mine is in, let's see here. I got it here. Just want to give you the proper name. Yeah, batch insert. Or let's see, yeah, batch insert step. So from there wasn't really a place that I seen I could edit those.
Are you passing in a list of those that you're trying to edit,
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
You could do it one of two ways. Since it will only be a flow you'd run once, right, just to update the data, you can use a fetch entity step to fetch all the data, send that fetch result to a for each step, and then on the next path, you would use the selective update step to set those values to a current date. And so that's how you can kind of loop through that logic and configure it that way. Because every database structure has a selective update, where all you need to do for this one is you can pass in the input ID and then the current date time, and then all those records that are already created in your system will be updated with a constant value or whatever value you set. Of
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, thank you for that explanation.
course.
And where, just one last thing, that screen that you showed, that had all the default and isn't the docs, yeah,
Yes.
that.
Yep.
I was just trying, yeah, if you could maybe paste that in the chat or something, that would
Yep.
be great.
For sure.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Of course.
Right. Any other questions from anyone else on today? Talk about a few different things. All right. If we have nothing else, then we will end it there for today at least. So, we will continue. We've got another okay. We got another one. We'll got another one tomorrow. I will be leading again. So if you have other questions, you can ask and join tomorrow, and we'll be happy to take a look at anything else. Otherwise, hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will catch you all next time.